You wake up to screaming, not animal screaming, human screaming, the kind that means someone you have slept beside for months has just done something that cannot be undone. There is no police station within walking distance. There is no judge. There is no prison. There is no written law. There is just your tribe, a body, and the person who did it, standing right there, holding whatever they used. What happens next is the oldest question in human history. For roughly 300,000 years, every group of humans on Earth had to solve this exact problem without any of the systems you take for granted today. No courts, no lawyers, no jails, no constitution. Just 30 to 150 people who needed each other to survive, and one of them had just shattered the most fundamental rule. And the answer they came up with was not what you would expect. Let's start with the evidence that violence existed in the first place, because for a long time, scientists argued about this. In 1964, a cemetery called Jebel Sahaba was excavated along the Nile River in what is now northern Sudan. It dates back roughly 13,000 to 14,000 years. Inside, archaeologists found dozens of skeletons, men, women, children, many embedded with small stone projectile points. Some had cut marks on their bones. This was not a natural disaster. This was organized violence. It is considered one of the oldest known massacres in the archaeological record. But it goes back even further. At a site in Spain called Cima de los Huesos, which translates to pit of bones, scientists recovered the remains of at least 28 early humans dating back around 430,000 years. Many of the skulls showed evidence of blunt force trauma. In 2015, a study published in the journal PLOS1, led by the researcher Nohemi Saleh, concluded that at least 2 of those skulls showed fractures consistent with interpersonal violence, not accidents, not animal attacks. Someone hit these people in the head hard with something heavy. So yes, humans have been killing each other for a very long time. You probably are not surprised by that. But here is the part that almost nobody talks about. Killing someone inside your own group, inside your own tribe, was a completely different matter from violence against outsiders. And understanding how small bands handled internal murder reveals something remarkable about your own psychology. The anthropologist Christopher Boehm spent decades studying this exact problem. His landmark book, Hierarchy in the Forest, published in 1999, drew on fieldwork with modern hunter-gatherer societies across Africa, South America, and Southeast Asia. Groups like the Jew/Honsi of the Kalahari, the Hadza of Tanzania, and the Aceh of Paraguay. What he found was a pattern so consistent across cultures and continents that he gave it a name. He called it the reverse dominance hierarchy. In a chimpanzee troop, the biggest, most aggressive male dominates through intimidation and brute force. Boehm observed that human hunter-gatherer bands did the exact opposite. The moment any individual began to act like a tyrant hoarding food, using violence to control others, taking mates by force, the rest of the group ganged up on him. Not one hero standing alone. The whole group, together, coalitionally. This was not optional. This was survival. A band of 40 people on the African savanna could not afford to have a bully running things. The group needed cooperation. It needed trust. It needed everyone pulling in the same direction, especially during hunts, during droughts, during dangerous river crossings. One violent individual could destroy the entire fabric that held the group together, and the group could not let that happen. So what happened when someone actually killed another member? Let's reconstruct the scenario based on what anthropologists have documented. The killing happens, there is shock, there is grief, there is fury, the body is tended to. The closest relatives of the victim are the most dangerous people in the camp right now because in many hunter-gatherer societies, the obligation to seek revenge fell on the victim's kin. This is not abstract. The anthropologist Polly Wiesner, who spent over 40 years studying the Jew/Honsi people of the Kalahari, documented how disputes over resources, jealousy, and accusations of sorcery could escalate into lethal violence. And when they did, the resolution depended entirely on the social network surrounding both parties. In most documented cases, the group did not let revenge happen unchecked. Here is why. If the killer's close relative was killed in retaliation, then that family would seek revenge on the avenger. And then you get a blood feud. Blood feuds could tear a small band apart from the inside. In a group of 40 to 80 people, where every adult is essential for survival, Every hunter, every gatherer, every person who knows where the water holes are during a dry season, losing members to a feud was potentially fatal. For everyone. So the group intervened. The first step was almost always public deliberation. Everyone talked, not a formal trial with evidence and cross-examination. A long, heated, often emotional group discussion around the fire. The anthropologist Richard Lee, who lived among the Jews/Honsi for decades starting in the early 1960s, described how group members would talk about a dispute for hours, sometimes days, with everyone weighing in. Elders spoke. The victim's family spoke. The killer's family spoke. People who were not directly involved still spoke. The goal was not punishment. The goal was resolution. The goal was to restore the balance so the group could keep functioning. Think about that. The goal was not to inflict suffering on the guilty. The goal was to repair the damage to the social fabric. This is a fundamentally different philosophy from anything in your modern justice system. In most documented cases, the resolution came down to one of three outcomes. The first was compensation. The killer's family owed the victim's family something significant: food, tools, or in some societies, a future marriage arrangement. This transferred the debt from the individual to the larger family network and gave the victim's relatives a concrete reason not to seek blood revenge. It created an obligation, not a punishment. The second was social humiliation. The killer was shamed publicly in front of everyone. Their reputation, which inside a small band was literally everything, was destroyed. People stopped sharing food with them. People stopped sitting near them at the fire. In societies where your survival depends on others wanting to cooperate with you, this was devastating. Not metaphorically devastating. Physically dangerous. A person without allies in a hunter-gatherer band was a person who might not survive the next dry season. The third was banishment. This was the nuclear option. The killer was cast out of the group, alone, in the Pleistocene, without fire-making skills that others possessed, without knowledge of the seasonal territories, without anyone to watch for predators while they slept. The archaeologist John Speth has written about how solitary survival in the Paleolithic was essentially impossible for most humans. You needed a group. Being removed from one was the worst thing that could happen to you. Banishment was often a death sentence delivered in slow motion. And here is the counterintuitive part. These systems worked, not perfectly, not always. But Christopher Boehm's cross-cultural research showed that in the vast majority of hunter-gatherer societies he studied, internal homicide rates were kept remarkably low through these social mechanisms alone. The key insight is that the group did not need a police force, because the group was the police. Every single adult member was simultaneously the law enforcement, the jury, and the sentencing body. The deterrent was not a concrete cell. The deterrent was the terrifying prospect of losing the only thing keeping you alive, your place in the group. This is why Boehm argued that the human emotions you feel today, shame, guilt, the fear of being judged, the desperate need to belong, the anxiety that comes from social exclusion, are not weaknesses. They are justice mechanisms. They evolved over hundreds of thousands of years inside exactly this kind of social environment. Your brain still runs this ancient software every single day. When you feel a wave of shame after doing something wrong, that is your Paleolithic justice system firing. When you worry about what people think of you, that is your ancestors' survival mechanism doing exactly what it was designed to do. When you feel the pull of the group, the need to fit in, the terror of being cast out, that is not insecurity. That is a 300,000-year-old warning system telling you that, in the world your body was built for, being alone meant being dead. The researcher Lawrence Keeley, in his 1996 book, War Before Civilization, pointed out something that complicates this picture. While internal justice in small bands was remarkably effective at controlling violence within the group, violence between groups was a completely different story. Raids, ambushes, territorial conflicts, these were common and sometimes devastating. The idea of the peaceful, noble savage is a myth, but so is the idea that early humans were mindless killers. The reality was far more nuanced. Humans evolved to be both intensely cooperative within their group and intensely competitive outside it. Your capacity for justice and your capacity for violence grew from the exact same root. Douglas Fry, the anthropologist who wrote Beyond War in 2007, spent years documenting the conflict resolution strategies of small-scale societies around the world. He found that even in groups with histories of external violence, Internal mechanisms for maintaining peace were sophisticated, deliberate, and remarkably effective. Mediators, cooling-off periods, ritualized reconciliation, gift exchanges. These were not primitive people stumbling through violence. These were highly social animals who had spent hundreds of thousands of years perfecting the art of keeping their groups together, because their lives depended on it. And now look at your world. You live in a society with formal laws, courts, prisons, police, and a justice system so complex that most people cannot navigate it without professional help. But beneath all of that infrastructure, the old system still runs. Peer pressure, reputation, social media shaming, cancel culture, workplace ostracism, the desperate, sometimes irrational need to be accepted by the people around you. These are the same mechanisms your ancestors used around a fire on the African savanna 200,000 years ago. The tools changed, the wiring did not. So the next time you feel that sting of embarrassment, that cold panic when you realize you have disappointed someone, that ache when you feel left out, remember. That feeling is not your weakness talking. That is your tribe's oldest survival mechanism, still running, still protecting you, still doing exactly what it was designed to do in a world without courts, without laws, and without anyone coming to help. You wake up to screaming, and your body already knows what to do.